Quick show of hands, who here is a college student? Sounds about right. Unfortunately, something we don't always realize is that we are lucky to be here. Now, sure, we all earned our place to attend Cal Poly, but there are some who are, there are all too many who will never have the same opportunity simply because they can't afford to. According to the National Society of College Education Statistics, there are 45.3 million people in the United States currently living in poverty, and yet they are rarely, if ever, given the chance to improve their circumstances. With the countless opportunities opened up by having a bachelor's degree, I propose that we make college education affordable for all citizens of the United States in order to improve the issue of generational poverty. First things first, poverty affects almost 1/5 of all children in the United States, and has a disproportionate impact based on ethnicity and race. As you can see here, Hispanics and blacks in particular, as well as American Indians and Alaskan Natives, have a significantly higher percentage of poverty rate as opposed to whites and Asians. And as a result, there is indirect discrimination based on earnings. Historically, black colleges and minority-serving universities have been created to help address this issue, but they are only a temporary fix, according to Taylor Lewis. With declining graduation rates, fewer applicants, and severely limited fundraising causing them to decline. And they also fail to address the main problem, which is the actual poverty that forces students into these situations. Additionally, there is a substantial difference in income with and without a bachelor's degree. As you can see, across the board, there is almost a $30,000 difference between an incomplete high school education and a completed bachelor's degree, regardless of race and gender. These facts lead into a vicious generational cycle of poverty, according to Beagle from a 2003 study. While not all poverty is generational, and there are certainly some situational cases, generational poverty is the hardest to treat with conventional means, such as welfare, as it is spread across several generations. Children born into poverty must deal with persistent hunger and poor health and living conditions, which in turn leads to worse education experience, as they are unmotivated, as they are instead focusing on survival rather than success. With malnutrition, they are also impeded as they can't focus quite as well in school. This in turn leads to a lack of job opportunities, and then they can't earn quite as much as demonstrated by the difference in income. And as such, they have less money overall, and when they in turn have children, they are born into poverty again, and the cycle continues. This is too far. This is an issue in that existing solutions are insufficient. As I already mentioned, historically black colleges and minority-serving universities are currently in decline and fail to address the actual issue, poverty. Pell Grants, on the other hand, are the federal government's main strategy for helping low-income students, but they only allow a maximum annual credit of $5,645 per student, according to Bound from a study in 2013. They also only cover 12 credit hours per semester for full-time students, but most college programs require 15 credits to graduate timely in 4 years. So the result is that students are either forced to pay the difference in order to graduate in a timely fashion, or they stay in school for longer, placing further burden on the system and delaying their potential earnings. So in order to help address this issue, there have been several attempts made within the United States history. First and foremost, Senator Bernie Sanders' College for All Act was proposed in early 2015. And set forth to establish 4 free years of college for all United States citizens, and as well as lowering student loans and offering a chance for refinancing. The proposed solution would cost about $75 billion annually, funded by the Inclusive Prosperity Act, which would tax Wall Street a fraction of a percent in order to generate $300 billion income. But understandably, the American populace is against higher taxes, and so both inevitably failed, as funding would be absent should the first result. Another consideration is that free college isn't necessarily feasible within the United States. Looking at another example where free college is implemented, specifically in Germany, According to Denhart from the Center for College Affordability and Productivity, free tuition to public universities has its own issues. In Germany, while it's not restricted to local citizens, so international students can still benefit from free education, it is likely an unrealistic solution for the United States due to several key differences. First and foremost, Germany has a 49.8% income tax, which is incredibly high as compared to our current values. And as mentioned before, if the Inclusive Prosperity Act couldn't pass, it's even less likely that we'd be able to cover this difference. Additionally, the United States has 1,652 community colleges, whereas Germany only has about 148. So we'd be spreading our funds much more thinly. And finally, the German system doesn't cover living arrangements, so the poorest of society would still be forced to pay their own way in that regard. That said, there are still other practical solutions that have been proposed. America's College Promise Act, proposed also later in 2015 to the Senate and House, offered a full tuition waiver for the first 2 academic years of college, provided students could meet a 2.5 grade point average or higher for eligibility. It would have 75% federal funding, and then the other 25% would be met by the state with mandated allocations for higher education. Unfortunately, this also didn't pass, but I believe it could be improved upon by another country's existing system, specifically Australia. Australia uses the Higher Education Loan Program, according to John Marcus from the Harrison Report, which is an income-dependent loan repayment system. While technically speaking, the U.S. also has an income-dependent loan repayment system, it is much more complicated and much worse. There are 5 competing systems in place, all of which are needlessly complex to apply. In fact, Bruce Chapman, the Australian economist, responsible for creating the HELP program, said himself, "We thought, let's see how hard it is to apply to the United States system." And then we came back 4 days later and we couldn't do it. The qualified analyst himself could not complete the actual system to apply. Additionally, the HELP system is much more favorable for students, as in Australia, graduates don't have to start making payments for their college educations until they reach a salary that's the equivalent of $40,000, or roughly $20,000 less than the average income. And even then, they're only charged 4%. This increases up to 8%, around $80,000 earnings, and no interest tax is charged. So they're all paying back end after they've graduated, only when they can afford to. As opposed to the U.S. system, which would charge a minimum of 10% when earnings are only $18,000. So consolidating these 2 systems, we would follow the College Promises Act offer of first 2 years of college free. This would allow students to make valuable progress toward a degree and earn productive workspace skills in the process. For the remaining 2 years, and perhaps for graduate school as well, the improved loan system would ensure that students would never struggle to pay back their loans and need not sacrifice quality of life or default on payments. To visualize the success of the system in place, we need only look at Australia, where for the most part it's working. Thanks to the streamlined loan system and ease of accessibility, Australian students have virtually no fear or stress of ever having to, of paying back loans for college and even affording it in the first place. And they can therefore devote their efforts wholeheartedly to studying. The universities also offer several economic and social benefits in general. According to Deloitte Access Economics, human capital theory of higher education, university education increases the knowledge and skills of workers, which in turn improves productivity in the workforce. It also leads to higher wages benefiting students and generating returns through consumerism. So how can you help? First and foremost, you should contact your senators. California state senators are Dianne Feinstein and Kamala Harris. And by asking them to revise and reintroduce America's College Promise Act to the Senate and the House with specified accommodations, we would be able to express our continued support for those in poverty and allow them to gain economic independence and help alleviate generational poverty across the U.S.